Proper storage of dry goods is essential to maintain their quality, prevent spoilage, and minimize the risk of pests. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SuttonsDaze. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and we are all about pantry preparedness. And today we're going to talk about the proper storage of dry goods. No, it's not like watching the paint dry, I promise. So these are some basic guidelines for how to best store your dried goods. Containers are super important, whether they be, jars or plastic lock containers or Mylar bags or anything like that. Bringing those items home and then transferring them into an airtight container reduces the potential for pests, for things coming into your house, trying to get to your food, and for things that might have come in with the food getting out. It also helps to keep moisture out, cool, dark, and dry. Moisture is your enemy. You want to make sure to choose containers with an airtight seal. Super important. Sometimes just putting a lid on it is not enough, okay? You need to make sure that it's airtight and that it actually has that good seal, because otherwise some of those little critters are pretty little and they will get in there. And if the air and the moisture get in there, that's just as equally bad. So make sure they're airtight containers. There's a plethora of them out there on the market. My favorite, as always, canning jars. Labeling is important. It is super important, okay? So make sure to label these containers if you cannot tell exactly what it is. And if the smallest person in your house or the person least familiar with how you deal with food comes into your pantry and can't tell you what it is, like the difference between a macaroni pasta and a spaghetti noodle, then those are easy to tell. But can you tell the difference between your pectin and cornstarch? Maybe not. So definitely label the containers. Cool, dark places are always advised for proper storage. Those are the benchmark. Cool, dark, and dry, right? And I know that some of you live in a very warm climate or a very humid climate, and so you have your challenges. We all do. It's just one of those things. But making sure that those airtight containers are airtight, that helps keep out the humidity, definitely, okay? And as far as the heat goes, just know that if it gets over 75 degrees, all it does for an extended period of time, then all it does is shorten the shelf life of your food, okay? So instead of lasting 10 years, it'll last, maybe 7. Who knows? You should be rotating it through that. You should be rotating through that faster than that anyway. So you just want to make sure that you are doing your best to get that cool, dark, and dry. Avoiding heat, super important. Block off those heat vents. Keep it away from that window that has the heat coming in, and you will be okay. Heat's going to happen, okay? But direct heat, like above a heat vent or in a window that gets, the southern light hitting at it all day long, those are not your friends. Right next to the stove, not good. Right next to the water heater, not good. There are other places that you can find to store things that don't put it at risk by being right by a heat source. Shelving is super important. Very important. So a good sturdy shelf is always the best. Everyone always asks, these are muscle racks, and we normally take we normally take 3 and turn it into 2, because that allows us to add extra shelves in so that they're the right, height for canning jars and whatever we're planning on putting on there. And so 3 shelving units will make 2 shelves that give you enough room for 3 to 4 levels of quart jars and 5-gallon buckets on the bottom shelf. And then you've also got the top shelf. What you do also have to take into consideration, though, aside from that, is the weight. So be aware that wherever you're setting it is a good, solid foundation, because if you stack it to the rafters quite literally like we do, it could become a problem if your floor is not secure and stable. But these are muscle racks. You can get them, Home Depot, Sam's Club, Lowe's, everywhere. Everywhere has them. Shop around for the prices, though. Proper storage can also come down to basic organization. Kind of like how I said, I've got commercially bought food in one area, I've got dried goods in another area, freeze-dried in another area, and canned goods in another area. This allows me to figure out where the best spot is for them to keep them all together instead of having to be cattywampus all over the place. And it's just another step in making sure that however I manage to place it, it is in the best conditions for that food. Garages, outside sheds, never a good idea. Storing grains properly can be a little tricky sometimes, and there's always that, I put it in the freezer and then I put it in a bag, or I put it in a freezer and then I put it in a jar. I never put stuff in a freezer. I never put stuff in a freezer. I am not introducing that moisture to my food when I'm going to be putting it into storage. So that's up to you, totally your judgment call, okay? But I transfer the grains and the dry stuff into different containers, whether that is 5-gallon buckets with Mylar, just Mylar bags, glass jars, whatever the case may be, especially my grains, I put in there. And I do like to add oxygen absorbers if I am not vacuum sealing. Longer term for me, I put oxygen absorbers for longer term storage. So if I know that it's going to be lasting for more than a couple of years, oxygen absorbers go in there. If I know I'm going to use it up in the next year, then I vacuum seal it to the best of my ability. I don't like spending money where I don't have to. The important part is the removal of oxygen so that if you did get any hitchhikers, they're gone. Especially with commercially ground flour, a cool place is really important, okay? So if I go through my commercially ground flour pretty quickly. And so I put it into 5-gallon buckets with gamma lids. I make sure they're on there tight and secure, and I'm good. Are those pest proof? No, they are not. If I were to put a Mylar bag in there and an oxygen absorber in with my commercially ground flour and then put it in the bucket, then that will last longer and less possibility of anything trying to get in there to it. However, I'm not going to spend the money on Mylar for something that I'm going to be going through within a 6-month basis. It makes no sense. So do everything that you can for where you are. This is what works for me where I'm at. Wherever you are, you want to do what works best for you. Ask around to people in your area that you know do this, or do a little bit of research, via the internet and see what works in your area. We're going to talk about oxygen absorbers a little bit later this month. Are they necessary for everything? No. Are they necessary for all things? Absolutely not. Do not use oxygen absorbers with your salt or with your sugar, because it will turn it into a brick, a legitimate brick, where you will be taking a chisel to try to get it out of there. It's unnecessary. Those are forever foods. Don't do it, okay? Otherwise, you're good. Nothing really hitchhikes in with your sugar and with your salt. Now, with your grains or with your pasta, it's a good idea because things do hitchhike in with them. Dried beans definitely can get hitchhikers. So you want to make sure that you are sealing them up so that nothing can get in and so that anything that might be in can't get out. If you're looking at nuts and seeds, yeah, there is no shelf-stable long-term storage for those. They have a natural oil in them that goes rancid. And so the best idea for those is to vacuum seal them or to put them in airtight containers and put them in the refrigerator or the freezer, depending on how soon you're thinking about using them. I have probably a couple of years worth of walnuts in the freezer now because I was gifted a case of walnuts. But they'll last. I mean, now, if you do some research on the internet, it'll tell you, a couple of years. Yeah, I'm here to tell you it's more than a couple of years. 30, probably not. Well, if you have a freezer that'll last that long. But definitely it will last you 5+ years in the freezer and not have any ill side effects at all. In the refrigerator, you're good for about 6 months with the natural oils that are in nuts and seeds. So if you're going to stock up on them with the intention that they are going into the freezer and that they are going to be used within a couple of years. Always the best idea. By following some of these simple storage guidelines, it can ensure that whatever you stock up on is there for you when you want it and when you need it. That's what's important. There's nothing worse than spending a whole bunch of money on food, putting it up incorrectly, and then having to throw it all out. That is a waste of food, and that is a waste of money, and that is a huge waste of time. So take some time to learn how to best put it up. I hope this answered some of your questions, and as the month goes on, I hope that we answer some more of your questions. But if you have any, be sure to put them in the comment section down below. If you want to check out more about the January Pantry Challenge, check out this link right here. And until next time, everybody, be safe.